having chats.
Don't ask those questions. God damn it. I don't give a fuck. I just want numbers. Just don't kill anybody. And when your ass is on the line for $1 million or 10 million or $1 billion, you won't be able to spell integrity. Where are you guys from? And of course, he's one of the youngest. But I'm not cutting him any slack just as he's one of the young. What's wrong with you? Legal, moral, and ethics. Morality and ethics float in the wind. All the guys have done something wrong. Maybe not as wrong as some people in this room, but all the guys have done something wrong. Henry Ford had people killed. Andrew Carnegie had people killed. I'm not recommending, suggesting that in any way, shape, manner, or form. But sensitivity equals poverty. And we got some sensitive souls in this fucking room. Sensitivity equals poverty. And I was fortunate enough, coming out more or less straight out of the military, went to school a couple years, and Onassis people were called a lot of things in life, but sensitive wasn't one of them. They just weren't. In my experience with the Vatican Bank, they weren't sensitive either. But you're never going to outgrow it, totally. Because subconsciously, it's like I tell the story. It's not a story. When I say story, I mean they sold her to Idi Amin when she was about 7, 8. I believe this is already on YouTube for those of you that say that you've heard everything I've ever said on YouTube. And he fucked her from the time she was 7 or 8 till she was 11 or 12 when her anus got too big for his dick. Idi Amin had a dick like a forearm. And he was a ruthless bastard, a terrible human being. And so he sold her back to her mother. And then the mother sold him somebody else. And then the mother's tried to sell her again on to somebody else. And she escaped, Fast forward 25 years, she came to the UK, went to school, and then ultimately went to medical school, blah, blah, blah. And we were talking about, we're a product of our socioeconomic milieu, and I used to have a different kind of slide, but it said the same thing. And there was some guy from Israel, and it said that was pontificating about you can relearn, you can reprogram, you can, and she jumped up and actually knocked the table over when she jumped up. And she said that if I live to be 1,000, I will never forget that black horse stick up my ass. I went into therapy to try to help myself forget that. And if you think that you forget, you're below a chimpanzee, because a chimpanzee doesn't forget. You never forget. And of course, her life, she's had trouble with men, the whole story. I'm not demeaning any of that. You never forget. Just like I never forget the shit that rolled down my pants. Never. We're lucky today, my shit was solid. But we are products of our social and economic milieu. That's it. You're never going to forget. I don't give a fuck what you do. Barbara Streisand has been going to psychotherapy for about 55 years. Woody Allen has been going to psychotherapy about 60 years. Trying to forget. And the new modern psychotherapy, as opposed to the Frankl that I had a slide of earlier, is that you sit there and they want you to bring it to the surface and talk to it about it, as opposed to the old-time psychotherapy where they rip it out of you. But you're never going to forget. This is not going to make your life on a subconscious level better. Not going to happen. It just is. Now, I get my jollies off when this is in today's newspaper. Has a picture of a rabbi, a mentee of mine, and he's the official rabbi of Neom, the futuristic city of Saudi Arabia. And who did he meet? And was introduced to Klaus Kleinfeld, the first executive of the project. So 2 mentees, one who started the motherfucker and one who's trying to turn it from Muslim to Jewish, being a Jew. And when he asked me if that was a good idea to go over there, I said, yeah. Now, this rabbi is a psycho, decorated guy from the wars. He is a fucking psycho. And I'm sure that they won't beat you down. And of course, Klaus isn't a psycho, but he's the guy, the first CEO. He's still on the board. So here, newspaper, 2 guys prominently written about both eye training. And then there's you. What, if anything, am I going to read about you? When you still are wondering whether it's possible, but more importantly, what you're really saying is, can I do it? That's the only questions you guys have. You know it's done. The question is, can you do it? And I think I told you the first day, and before Dustin got here, I used to go around and say, after the first afternoon of the first day, the real full day, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, 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 yes, whether you were going to make it or not. And naively, at that time, I thought that, well, I'm going to show the old fucker, then work out there. It just became a self-fulfilling prophecy. The guys I said that were going to fail, failed, and the guys I said that were going to succeed, more or less succeeded because of the lack of intestinal fortitude, the lack of grit in the current generation. Actually, it's about a generation and a half that's gone to shit. The last generation and a half has gone to shit. But I don't try to hide the past. I talk about it freely. Most of the other gurus, now the very current crop of the last 5 or 6 years, I'm not aware of them. I don't know them. But the old-time gurus that have been around 20, 25, 30 years, I do know very well, rarely talk about their past. Now, some people say the reason they don't talk about their past is because they don't really have a past. Their past is made up. It's a fig Newton of newspaper articles that are not accurate, the books that they've read, written that aren't accurate, and that it's bullshit. It's like personal development. It's a bullshit story. I don't know that. I certainly don't know it for the current crop because I didn't go around for almost a year and follow them around and listen to them and hire private investigators to figure out what they were doing. Last night you saw a movie about Steve Jobs, and I read some of them this morning, the early ones, for those of you that submitted them early. And your takeaways and my takeaways are, you're on Venus and I'm on Mars. It was a book, a famous book. That was another book that brought humanity to a standstill. Women are from Venus and men are from Mars or some bullshit. But either we saw different movies, and then I checked again to make, because I have 3 movies on Jobs. Every time they have a documentary type movie about Mr. Jobs, it comes out after the closest ones to his death were kind of complimentary. The ones that were made the farthest away from his death were, he was an asshole. And I said the first night and the first day, you would like to change the world, and Steve Jobs no doubt changed the world. How he changed the world now with woke and being politically correct is more than questionable. Now the kids wouldn't change the world the way he would. You know, he was like a bull in a china shop. It was his way or the highway. Took shares away. Again, it's a compilation of all 3 movies because I know all 3 movies by heart. Took the shares away from the guys that had been with him 4 or 5 years. A few days before going public. Wouldn't recognize his own daughter until he figured out she was a genius. Made his wife, the mother of his daughter, live on relief, living in a garage, and on and on. But he changed the world. Apple, you know the story better than I do. The Mac, you know the story better than I do. Some of you may have not equated making sacrifices. That he physically went up to Hewlett, if I remember correctly, called them for parts, and then he worked there a summer at Hewlett Packard. I had the pleasure of knowing Ambassador Packard. Nixon made Packard the ambassador to China, I believe, and I went to his second daughter's wedding in Silicon Valley. I was part of the wedding. One of my mentees at the time married into the Packard family, and I still remember on Wall Street he asking me, Dan, do you think I should marry so-and-so? She's a good-looking girl. You're swinging above your weight here. And I walk away, and then I turn around and I said, you mean like Ambassador Packard? You mean like billionaire Packard? Yeah, Hewlett Packard, yeah. What are you, crazy? When's the wedding? And then several weeks later, I got married. And so we're going through the reception line. And you know how you shake everybody's hand? And because she was a flight attendant for PSA Air, as I recall, she had a lot of flight attendants. And in those days, PSA Air girls wore skirts, mini skirts like this. And the girl was going through the reception line. And when she got to Ambassador Packard, instead of shaking his hand, she went and reached and grabbed him by the balls and said, God, I always wanted to know what $1 billion felt. And of course, security and everybody went crazy. And I got knocked down. But that's a family marriage. They were married 5-6 years. And then he walked away with a big paycheck. In the good old days, when you grab somebody by the balls, not go to jail. And Ambassador Packard, God rest his soul, didn't complain. Mrs. Packard, the ambassador's wife, complained a lot. And when the Secret Service would drag, get all those airplane people out of here, off my stage. Questions, comments about Mr. Jobs? Yes, sir.
I wanted to know your perspective on his general integrity, because you mentioned how
he didn't have any.
But was that large proponent of his success, or would it have also been possible without?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Would it have been possible with having cats?
Don't ask those questions. God damn it. I don't give a fuck. I just want numbers. Just don't kill anybody. And when your ass is on the line for $1 million or 10 million or $1 billion, you won't be able to spell integrity. Where are you guys from? And of course, he's one of the youngest. But I'm not cutting him any slack just because he's one of the young. What's wrong with you? Legal, moral, and ethics. Morality and ethics float in the wind. All the guys have done something wrong. Maybe not as wrong as some people in this room, but all the guys have done something wrong. Henry Ford had people killed. Andrew Carnegie had people killed. I'm not recommending, suggesting that in any way, shape, manner, or form. But sensitivity equals poverty. And we got some sensitive souls in this fucking room. Sensitivity equals poverty. And I was fortunate enough, coming out more or less straight out of the military, went to school a couple years, and the Onassis people were called a lot of things in life, but sensitive wasn't one of them. They just weren't. In my experience with the Vatican Bank, they weren't sensitive either. Other questions, comments about John? jobs. He was a ruthless bastard. And I did some work for Apple back in the 80s. And I told you I may have been the last one that saw him coherent in Bangalore at a nightclub kind of place. And he had enough money to save himself. He went to, he tried everything except modern day medicine, diet and all that stuff. Yoga, Buddha. I still get a riot. I saw something on the news last night. Fuck. But all you guys do it because you're all weak. That's why you fucking do it. Anything else about jobs? Well, you had a lot of comments on your fucking papers, didn't you? And now you can't open your fucking mouth. Funny, isn't it? Now, I think it's fucking pathetic.
So, Mr. Pena, many years ago when I was here the first time, you had talked about this, there is no work-life balance. And
correct.
It merely was a testament watching the mind of Steve, is that there was no work-life balance.
And as Jack Welch eloquently said, better than I can say, there is no work-life balance, there are work-life choices. And they have motherfucking consequences, you cunts. And you don't even try to have, on the work side, imbalance because you're already too afraid of the fucking consequences. Because you're cowards. You're warriors, not warriors. And the Spartans would have never taken you at 7 or 8 years old. They would have thrown you in a ditch. So even if you didn't roll down your leg of your fat fucking mother, you'd wind up dead.